Welcome back, South Philly Sauce and Audacy Original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. Ashlyn and Al here with you during a nice little break here from the NHL and the Flyers. The Flyers go 13 days without a game, and it is a break that is definitely needed as there are a lot of injuries and really just needing to retrack and reshape to get ready for the last crucial stretch here of the season. But we start with the Four Nations and the excitement around the guys, the Flyers that are in this tournament. You have Travis Konecny, you have Travis Sanheim, you have Sam Ersson, who is so easy to root for in this situation. If you would have said at the start of hockey season, when there were still questions, is Sam Ersson going to have it? Can he be a starting goaltender? To represent his country is such an incredible story in the same year.
Yeah, it's an exciting moment. Unfortunately, if you're in Philadelphia now, there's nothing except a parade, right? It's all Eagles, and that's great to have that. And I mean, all the teams have been involved in it, but it really is. It just shows you how much that shadow goes over all the other franchises on what's gone on. I mean, I think that Cooper DeJean riding the Zamboni was one of the biggest moments of the season for the Flyers. And you could say the same thing somebody's at a Sixers game, or, I don't know who's going to throw out the first pitch for the Phillies, but I guarantee it'll be like, BG or somebody to go on. So you got to carry on. You've got to, continue to, that's the number. You're in that sport. The break actually, I think, came at a good time, like you mentioned, just not for the rest, but just because of what's going on with the Eagles. It's kind of good to have the focus off of here and on Four Nations. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the league breaking for a tournament. In this case, because of the Eagles and I'm in Philadelphia, it's fine. But I'm normally, like, if I was in wherever, Washington, and, teams playing really well and you break for what? I mean, I don't understand. If I was a player, I want to do it. But otherwise, I mean, maybe the Olympics, but this tournament here, I just can't. If the Flyers were flying and there was no Super Bowl or whatever, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you want to carry that momentum.
Don't go get hurt. Don't go out there. And we all saw what happened with Embiid, or whether you want to believe it or not. That story's out there. And what if you really do get hurt? I think it's crazy. But since it's the only thing to watch, I'll be watching it. And I'm actually like it because I like some of the differences with the NHL that are going on.
Right. And I think if you put the situation, if you're a team that's thriving right now, and say you're at the top of your division or you're in that first wild card spot even, and it's, games are on the line right now, would you want Sam Ersson playing? No, definitely not.
No, and certainly didn't want Ristolainen going with whatever injury he has. Yeah. I mean, he's not going. So it sets up. I will say, though, Ashlyn, I kind of want to see, the fact that this thing is set up the way I think the NHL should be set up in terms of points. You win a game in regulation, you get 3 points. You win a game in overtime, you get 2 points. You don't get, like, that 3 points makes a difference. And I think what the NHL wants to do is, keep everything close so everybody's involved. But I just don't think you're rewarded enough for a regulation win compared to other wins. So in this tournament, regulation 3, overtime 2, overtime loss, you get the 1. And it makes sense. And I think the NHL really is a chance that this could happen. Instead of the 5-minute 3-on-3, it's a 10-minute 3-on-3. Mm-hmm. So that you don't have so many shootouts. Like the Flyers have had, what have we had? 16 overtime games? 16 overtime games.
Lead, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think those 3-on-3s are tremendous. So yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it. I hate the shootout. I thought it was cool maybe one year to get some highlights or whatever. But you watch it now, it's like, I'd rather have the 3-on-3 is so good. And I understand, your top player is going to get extra ice time. For the Flyers, you really look at it with all those overtimes. That'd be a lot of extra minutes for whoever's going to be on the ice, Konecny, Sanheim, Michkov, whomever. So, but I do think, just as a hockey fan, man, if you told me they were knocking the games down to 54 minutes and 3-on-3 for 10, I'd take it because it's so good.
I think anyone would be for that. I even remember it was a couple months ago where he was talking about how much he dislikes the shootouts and he wants 3-on-3 because in his opinion, that was your most talented hockey on the ice, and he thinks run with it. I mean, that's most entertaining. I agree with it, but I don't know. Do you think they're going to change that, Al?
I think they may. I think there might be an appetite for it, just to see what goes on. It depends on the players a lot to see what happens. But I do think it's just too good when you've got coaches saying that, and coaches hate the shooter. Let's face it, the skills competition. Yeah,
Sports is the only one who says it.
There's nothing you can do. You go out there and what happens? And for goalies, it's awful. I would think. A shooter. So I mean, I would much prefer. So I actually think it's going to get some sentiment to go its way. So we'll see what happens between now and then. A lot of this is a test also. The Olympics coming up next year in Italy. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think that there's a real chance that 3-on-3 extends double time.
Yeah, that would be very cool to see that change. I think it would definitely help out hockey. And you're seeing it in every other sport. You're seeing every sport make an effort to speed things up, to attract to a younger audience. We've seen it with baseball. It was very successful. You see it with the NFL and the kickoff rules. I don't think it's too much to ask the NHL to adapt and change a little bit to appeal to a younger audience, that's for sure. And now we move to our next topic, which is good for the Travi. And it certainly is good for the Travi. Travis Konecny, Travis Sanheim, to play for their country. And it just goes to show this is the next movement for the Flyers, is to have these guys on your team. This is why a Travis Konecny gets paid, because he does things like this, which is be on posters for the NHL representing the Flyers.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be on that second power play unit too, for Team Canada. So when you look at those two, I mean, let's be honest, the chances of the Flyers making the playoffs are like one, if that, with all the teams lined up in front of them. So for them, this can be like a playoffs. I mean, because it's Team Canada. That makes a difference, because the audience in Canada will be far more than the United States percentage-wise, people watching and what you can do. And a lot of people, I think, are looking at this, Canadians, and thinking, what are they doing? Sanheim, maybe Konecny, but so this is a real chance to really show that you belong shoulder to shoulder with some of these star players. And especially for a guy like Konecny, especially a guy that can, really disturb things, if you will. And the U.S. team's got a lot of more physical guys. So a guy like Konecny in a game like that could be really important. Frankly, I think that the Canada-Sweden game is going to be really important to those guys, because I think people underrate Sweden. And I think they've got a good chance to at least go head-to-head with the Canadians, maybe beat them. But this is where, guy like, if you turn into one of the big players in these games, Konecny, Sanheim, that's so important. I think we lose sight of it in the States, because we don't have that. We don't have that commitment to the international game. Yeah, we'll talk about way back in 1980, whatever. But in Canada, it really counts. Golden goals and Olympics, all of that stuff really, really counts more than in the U.S.
Yeah, and as it should, it's an incredible accomplishment. It's an incredible opportunity for those guys, and they've earned it. They've played their way into it, especially someone like Travis Sanheim, who has really carried the load this season. You don't want to think about what the Flyers D-core would look like without him. I mean, it's scary to think about, frankly. And that leads us to our last topic point, which is going to be the topic point until this trade deadline rolls around, because it just seems like the same guys are always in the conversations. One, you feel for Rasmus Ristolainen that he can't play in the Four Nations. That was an incredible accomplishment for him, and unfortunately can't play because of his injury. But I think we all can agree he made the right decision not play slightly injured. But Rasmus Ristolainen still in the trade rumors, but no one bigger than Scott Laughton, and that's rinse, wash, repeat for the past, 3 seasons with Laughton?
Yeah. And he's getting used to it, but I don't think it likes it anymore. I mean, I don't think much as you're used to it, I think the more you get entrenched in a franchise, your family, baby, all of that stuff, it really starts it becomes more of an issue on what's gone on. Unfortunately, he's a terrific trade candidate, like for Leafs or whomever. He can play wing, middle, whatever, come in. He's a low maintenance guy. I think there's going to, I think there's going to be a lot of interest in him, and
like more than previous seasons, because I feel like we hear that every year.
Yeah, but I think as it goes on, you contract, you get less to deal with in terms of what you're taking on for contract, and the Flyers now with you've got the youth behind that you can kind of see who's coming up, who's ready to take a place. We just saw a trade go through where they made their mind up. Well, a couple of guys have moved ahead of you here. What's there with Lawton? I mean, a guy's moving ahead. You can't move Couturier because of his money and his injury status. The double back surgeries or whatever. So Konechny's the one that you might be able to get something for, a lot for, to come into a trade deadline situation, and it'll be a team that either one, whoever they move. I mean, Lawton's going to be a big name. I think Kuzmenko is going to be a pretty good candidate at the trade deadline to move on if they don't maybe like what they see, or other teams really like what they see, especially on a power play, whatever. And they're going to flip them for something, and you lose them for nothing at the end of the year anyway. So there's a lot in play for the Flyers at the trade deadline, and unfortunately for the fans, Lawton's going to be one of those names. But I do think the fact that Briere and Jones, both ex-players, are kind of running things, there's a little bit more to the locker room thing that, okay, he's been important to this. However, we just saw two guys that were pretty popular in the locker room leave. So, I mean, if they can get a good deal, they're going to make that deal. So
well, you have to. That's the point of the time the organization's in. And I don't know, I've heard people say, well, you saw how much the Frost and Farabee trade impacted the locker room. Guys were brutally honest, more so than I thought. I mean, if you watch Garnet Hathaway's interviews and he talked about how hard it was, I think rarely do you hear the honesty like that. And everyone was talking about, or at least fans were talking about, okay, well, that impact trades in the future when you saw how hard the room was hit. In my opinion, you can't think that way, because then where are you going? What momentum are you bringing then?
Yeah, you can't fall in love with the players, if you will. I mean, there's certain critical guys to a franchise, but you're not talking. Well, you're not talking to like an Eagles team that would trade somebody that won a Super Bowl, right? Yeah. I mean, they really haven't really brought success or whatever. They're just popular players, and they're very valuable to another team. Lawton especially, I think, would be very valuable. So. We'll see which way it goes. They may give a little bit of weight to like, okay, it's a part of our culture or whatever, see what happens. But I don't think that'll be the deciding factor. The deciding factor is, man, can we really get a really big draft pick for this, or a young center prospect for this? Then I think they'll make the deal.
Yeah, that's just the point of time the organization is in. It's time to move forward, and tough decisions will be made. So very curious how this all shakes out, but I think everyone is okay with some movement here, because I think the last thing you want is to just stay the same because you have good guys in the room. I get it, but that only, I think, lasts so long. And to me, at least, I think everyone's hit their point of it being, okay, that was nice, but let's move forward.
Yep, that's where they are. So I wouldn't count on this team looking exactly the same at the trade deadline.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in that South Philly Sauce and Audacy Original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. We will see you next week for another episode of South Philly Sauce. Enjoy the Four Nations break, and we'll see you back here soon.